Are there bees flying around your rectum? Do you have moose pimples? Call 1-800-PP51-DOO-DOO and we will fix your carburetor. Good afternoon, folks. Some of you grew up with a father or grandfather in the garage, you know? I'm sure you have one of these bad boys around. His great-grandfather probably had one, a heat ignition analyzer. I don't know what it does, but it's pretty fantastic. Today, we are not going to show you how to use this piece of shit. Instead, we're going to show you how to use something that's much more simple and comfortable and warm. Something you want to keep close at hand, you know? And protect with your life.
And what is that?
That is, let me show you. This little guy. It's nice and warm. All right, folks, by the end of this video, you're actually gonna learn the fine art of not fucking your bike up. So let's get started. This video is gonna cover 3 things. 1, you're an idiot. That fact has been established. 2, your bike is not being run properly. And 3, what you can do about it. In just a few minutes, I'm gonna teach you how to spend under $20 to avoid the absolutely costly mistake of turning your bike into a boat anchor. Now you can get to spend that $20 before the government gets hold of it, which is even more fun. Now I have to think of something very clever to say to this camera. Sorry. I have to think of something very clever to say to this camera about what we're about to start fucking with. This requires one simple tool, not your tool, and you can get it pretty much all over the internet. As we all know, Al Gore invented the internet. So if you Google Al Gore and internet, you'll find this tool. Oh God, I'm looking at motorcycles. Have you seen the trailer? Watch it, now, go! Just watch the damn thing, fuck! Next build. Go watch it, go watch it, go. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is get your motorcycle up to operating temperature. So I've already started the bike ahead of this video, and it's pretty warm right now. We are gonna start up again in just a minute. But what you're gonna do is get one of these little tiny tachometer hour meters. They're pretty cheap. You can find them on eBay, Amazon, internet, everywhere. Just look up small motor tach hour meter or tachometer. And they look like this. They have a digital readout. You can put them on small motors to keep track of how many hours the motor's been running, but they also are a wonderful, inexpensive digital tach to set your idle speed. I wanna warn you guys, if your idle speed is too low, on a Honda Shadow, there are several things that are gonna happen. 1, if the RPMs are too low, that means the top end of your motorcycle is getting no oil. What's gonna happen is the oil is just gonna pump and do this. You need the proper RPMs to make sure the oil gets up to the top end and gets dripped over the valve train. The damage that can come from having too low of an idle on a Honda Shadow is that you will end up prematurely wearing your valves, your valve guides, the tappets, and the valve seats as well. So things start to move, get stuck and bind in the valve guide. That means the valve has a chance to seat crooked. I actually had a Honda Shadow once that we were chasing a compression issue. And it turns out the valves were super wonky. I do believe it was because the previous owner had run the idle way too low or starved the bike of oil, which is less common. And then the valve guides ended up getting very scored. The valve seals were totally dried out and cracked. And yeah, that can happen after, 6-7 years of sitting, but this bike hadn't sat that long. So I knew that what was most likely happening is someone idled it, it's dry, the idle's way too low, it's a risk. So today we're gonna show you how to avoid that problem. Now it's important to remember that this step cannot be started until you have a properly tuned motorcycle. We've already gone ahead and tuned our carburetor. We actually have a 2-part video series on how to tune a single carburetor on your Honda Shadow. I believe it's called Easiest Carburetor Tune Under the Sun or something, or Watch Me Touch a Carburetor in a Sensuous Manner. I think that's the one. Hey, buy some stuff at shoptjbc.com. It's a commercial. Buy the thing, do the thing, buy the thing several times. Buy more of the things, thank you. Now some things you may see here that may look different from your bike. I have my idle control screw on this side of the bike. Yours may be on the other side of the bike on the left side. I've actually zip tied this to the little retainer for the float vent, and that way I can reach it easily when needed. I've actually put some double-sided tape on the back of this tach meter, and there's a wire that comes off of it. Now, you read the instructions, and they're most likely in Taiwanese or something, and you're not gonna be able to read them. So today I'll show you what to do. Take this little wire and you're gonna come over here. The reason I'm using this ignition wire, because it's got a little flat area back here on the frame that I can lodge the wire against and hold it in place. If you go somewhere like this, it's a little harder to get the wire to stay put, and I'll show you why. So you're gonna wanna go around this at least 5 times. Go. I take the little pigtail, put it right here, and the wire stays on the ignition wire. Now this is the sensor wire. This is gonna send information to our tachometer. I've gone ahead and rubber banded the excess up here off the motor. One thing you want to be careful of is that none of this stuff is touching your exhaust while you're doing this. Because if this burns on your exhaust, your exhaust is going to look like crap, it's going to smell horrible, and the tachometer won't work. The next step here is to start up our bike. Now if we look at the tachometer, we're at about 1190, 1200, 1210, 1220. If I pump the throttle, we're going to let the idle settle down. I'm going to adjust the idle adjustment screw very slightly to bring this number down. You twist it, you want to give it a moment. 1200 is your ideal idle speed. Now the manual says you can do 1200 plus or minus 100. So right now I'm bouncing between 1250 and 1190. 1240, 1230. This is acceptable. This is the proper idle speed for a Honda Shadow. 600s and 750s. Back this off a little bit. Now you're likely not going to get that tachometer to sit right at 1200 all the time. It's going to fluctuate a little bit. Not too much, but up and down a little bit. That's because this is not a perfect electronic tachometer. But we are within range. As long as your bike is warmed up at operating temperature, this is going to give you a correct reading. Now what you don't want is to slow that idle down too low. And I'm going to show you what too low is. A lot of guys are going to do this to get that, Harley potato sound. Now the reason you can't actually get that sound in a healthy manner for this motorcycle is this is a dual pin crank, not a single pin crank. A Harley is a single pin crank, and there's 405 degrees between each cylinder firing. So you have a dead cycle, which is where you get that potato, potato, potato sound, right? So to explain single pin and dual pin cranks, the crank down here on a Honda Shadow is a dual pin. So the crank is a big round piece, right? Now there's a pin here and a pin here, and my arms are the con rods going to the pistons. This is a dual pin crank. Goes like this, round of center, right? Look at my body, stays still, right? Beautiful. A dual pin crank reduces vibrations in the motor, reduces weight, increases horsepower. You get much more usable space in the engine. A single pin crank is antiquated technology, but it is what Harley has stuck by for many years. This is a single pin crank. I can't do this without my body moving. You see I move around? I can't do this without my whole body getting turned off. That's why Harleys shake themselves to death. So you have a single pin crank. It actually has to have a lot more weight. You gotta balance them. They can go out of balance. It's a pain in the ass. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other. If we're talking engineering-wise, a dual pin crank is gonna be a more favorable choice. So a lot of you first-time Honda Shadow riders, or maybe long-time Shadow riders, really want that Harley sound. I don't personally think the sound of this bike properly tuned at the correct idle speed sounds bad at all. No, it doesn't sound like a Harley. Not every Harley sounds like another Harley. It's a unique sound created by the Honda Shadow. So, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna turn this bike on, and we're gonna turn the idle down way too low to what some of you guys think is the, the sick chopper sound. Now I'm bringing the idle down. We're at about 920, 880. Right now, there's no oil being pushed up to my top end. It's just getting hot and dry. And as we all learned, hot and dry is not a good combo. You want hot and wet. So now let's bring this idle back up to the proper speed. The Honda Service Manual recommends 1200 RPMs plus minus 100 RPMs. So if you are between 1300 and 1100 RPMs using this wonderful little tool here, you're just fine. Now, if you want that single pin crank sound, that potato, there are several Honda Shadow single pin crank bikes you can get. The 98 to 2003, 2004 VT750 Ace was a motorcycle that Honda made with a single pin crank. Coincidentally, Harley tried to sue them several times over the sound, which is hilarious because, I mean, many other motorcycles make the same kind of sound and it's a single pin crank design. I digress. There were several 1100s that were made with single pin cranks as well, but if you don't like the sound your bike makes, you can change the pipes, you can do mufflers, you can do different kinds of exhaust to change that exhaust note, but don't change that idle speed. That idle speed is important for this machine to have a long and healthy life. Combined with basic maintenance, changing your coolant, your spark plugs, your oil, your filters, this bike is going to last longer than your dead grandmother did. Thank you everyone for watching How Not to Fuck Your Bike Up. I really hope you found this video helpful. I see a lot of guys out there getting a Honda Shadow and they turn the idle way the hell down because it's like chopper cool guy sound, you know. But if you want your bike to last a while, make sure you take care of it. You can do a lot of stuff to make it look cool. They're fantastic bikes to last a long time, as long as you don't drop that idle way too low. If you guys found this video helpful or just not a total fucking waste of your time, leave me a comment. It really helps us out a lot to know how we're doing. If there's things you want to see, things you want to talk about, questions you have, drop them in the comments. I do want to leave a friendly reminder. I can't diagnose your bike through YouTube comments because my crystal ball is broken. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm trying to source a new one, but there was this guy on a mountain who gave it to me and he's dead, so I'm kind of SOL. You know, you can always try. Shoot me a question. If I can't answer it, I'll let you know. Last but not least, please like and subscribe. Really helps our channel out. And if you've ever poked your friend in the belly button and thought it was a sweaty vagina, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe for me. Thanks.